what this really is about at the core is about that when we are designing new products and offerings, we have to be very conscious about what might potential unintended negative consequences be of the steps that we are taking, particularly when it involves AI, because there's a lot of unknown here and because the pace of scale is massive.
How's it, everybody? Welcome to another thought-provoking episode of Exponential Africa, where we're going to dive deep into the essentials of responsible innovation with none other than Kris Østergaard, a pioneering thought leader in transformative business practices, a best-selling author, a world-class speaker, and one of the co-founders of the Rehumanize Institute. Today, Kris will unravel the complexities of driving innovation responsibly in our rapidly evolving world, from ethical leadership to transforming legacy organizations. Join us as we explore how companies can adapt and thrive while upholding the highest standards of integrity and foresight. Welcome, Kris, to the show. Great to have you here.
Well, wonderful to be here, Mick. Thanks so much for having me.
And you're not a stranger to South Africa, and we're excited that you're going to be coming back for the upcoming Singularity South Africa Summit. What do you like about South Africa?
I mean, I love going to South Africa. I'm super excited about going back very soon to be part of your summit as well. I think there's so much to love about South Africa. One, you are, aesthetically a stunningly beautiful country. That's one thing. But more importantly, I think the people, the warmth that you're always greeted with in South Africa is exceptional. And I think you are such an entrepreneurial country and such an entrepreneurial spirit that as an entrepreneur myself, I find that massively motivational and energizing to be in a country like yours and with people like South Africans.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's quite an interesting insight. Coming from Denmark, where you face quite different challenges to South Africa and Africa, and it's great to hear that. And maybe we can start off by just defining what you see responsible innovation. What does it mean in today's tech-driven landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been doing a lot of research into understanding this whole topic of responsible business, which is really an umbrella term we're using to cover being a commercial entity, a commercial organization, where at the same time you have to take into account a rapidly growing number of issues, such as the responsible use of AI and technology, sustainability, diversity, equity, and inclusion, other social impacts that your business might have. So what does all of that mean in a world of growing complexity, the rapid rise of technologies, the geopolitical challenges, climate change that threatens sometimes even the very core of our organizations? That means that we have to double down on innovation. And we have to understand that innovation is not just, quote unquote, about bringing new products into the market. It's really about thinking innovation in absolutely everything that we do and at the core of who we are as organizations. And in order to future-proof our businesses, I think we need to put responsible in front of innovation. That is, having done a lot of research in the Nordic countries, the UK and the US, these are the signals and trends that we are seeing, that we are also seeing now moving to other parts of the world.
And I mean, what are some of the, can you give us some examples of some responsible innovation in these current tech advancements that you're seeing?
Well, so when it comes to responsible innovation, what this really is about at the core is about that when we are, designing new products and offerings, or when we are designing and developing new processes, ways of doing things, we have to, throughout the entire design process, development process, and launch process, we have to be very conscious about what might potential unintended negative consequences be of the steps that we are taking, particularly when it involves tech, particularly when it involves AI, because there's a lot of unknown here, and because the pace of scale is massive. And we have to increasingly look at also how can we increase our positive impact beyond, sort of providing our core offerings to people, because our stakeholders increasingly are demanding this. And so all of this we have to take into account when we are developing our solutions. And that means when it then comes to, what are responsible innovations, that those can really appear in all parts of the organization, of course in the products we're developing, but also really across the spectrum, wherever we are working in the company, in order to help move our company into the future. And a lot of companies really, in a way, are starting at the core of who they are and at the core of what they're doing. Of course, we see more and more companies where words like sustainability and giving back and humanity are becoming parts of their core values, and how they want to see themselves and the kind of value they want to put into the world. But at an existential level, it's about companies like L'Oreal who are seeing that, we gotta ensure biodiversity in the world, because otherwise we will not be able to make products. So that's cosmetics. Now then think about any type of food producing organization. Of course, they have the same issues, right? So that means that you have to go back and look at your entire value chain, and then consider, what then does that mean for the way that we source right now, the way that we produce right now? And what do we have to reimagine in order to ensure that we will have a supply chain going into the future, and that we will be able to create our products as well? Thus, you have to innovate on absolutely everything that you do, just to mention one example.
I love that. I mean, I think also it makes me think like good innovation is good for innovation. It's almost like you want to be creative, you want to be aware of the type of innovation you're creating, this responsible innovation that will actually make innovation better in the long run. And I think something very important around that is the ethics around that. And you're an expert in this, having written a book in ethics, which I'm very proud to have taken part in. And in your book, you discuss these traits of ethical leaders. How crucial is ethical leadership in fostering an environment of responsible innovation, from your point of view?
Yeah, it is absolutely key. So what our research shows us is that when we look at the organizations who are doing the most and the best on the responsible business agenda, broadly speaking, there are a couple of really interesting findings here. One is that there's a strong correlation between leading on the responsible business agendas and financial returns. Obviously, that is super interesting, right? Because most organizations are commercial at the core. That's not going to go away. It also shouldn't go away. So the notion here, the killer algorithm, of course, is to figure out how to match commercial with other positive impacts / less negative impact that you can have in the world. And there's this correlation. And what our research also shows is that there are 4 key components, or 4 keys really, to future-proof your organization by doubling down on responsible business and responsible innovation. And impact leadership, as we've named it, is actually is one of the components, and the one that correlates the strongest to financial returns. That is about you as a leader, and that is leader of self, but of course it's also leader of others. That is you being a role model. That is about you, showing the path for others, walking the talk, all of these things. And then very actively working towards building an inclusive culture where you can enable your people and where you can unleash their innovation powers, which generally speaking are much stronger than what our organizations tend to allow for in our daily business.
Yeah, and I think, also that, the whole idea is that if you are creating products and services, how can you use that to positively impact the world? I think that's so important for the future of all design, and for the future of all of our own lives. And talking about, if you want to add to that, please do.
No, I was just one thought that came to mind here is that I think there are two components to it, because in a way you can sort of have responsible products which are in a way designed to make a positive impact in the world. So let's say electric cars, for instance, EVs. While they by no means are perfect from a sustainability point of view, they are better than traditional cars on fossil fuels. So in a way, it's a responsible product. It's a more responsible product, and this is an ongoing process, of course, making them more and more responsible, more and more positively impactful. At the same time, you can say there can be a lot of pieces in the process to creating that product that is less responsible, that is less sustainable. And here is that, and that's the biggest chunk or very often in the impact that you have in the world, positively and negatively. So you can also do a lot to become a very sustainable and responsible organization by looking at that whole process, right? So it's not just about your product, is also about how you create the product.
And I mean, what are some of the? I mean, you touched on it there with the cause, but what's some of the impact of responsible innovation on the company's performance? Can you share any examples of how responsible innovation has affected performance and sustainability of businesses that have adopted it to date?
Yeah. Again, at a macro level, what we are seeing, and our study is not the only one that shows this, I see more and more studies that are investigating the same thing, is that there's a correlation between doubling down on the responsible business agendas and your financial returns. Other studies that look specifically at sustainability, they see that the leaders on the sustainability agendas also have better financial returns. Of course, you can be critical and cynical and say, yeah, well, is it the chicken or is it the egg? And I think it's both, right? Because I think it's about it's about your mindset and how you design in your organization for being in the world. So these are not two separate compartments. It is exactly about being a responsible business and building that into the core of your DNA. And that is what we are seeing in our research, that more and more companies do. And we're seeing a massive acceleration again in primarily here in the western parts of the world. So when we look at this, it's important to mention that this is not equal throughout the world. But why is it interesting then from a South African perspective? Well, because it gives you a view into trends in other parts of the world that will impact throughout the remainder of the world, right? So in a way, it gives also a view into the future. And we are seeing, I think, particularly in South Africa, also really an accelerating pace here at how organizations are doubling down on these agendas here. But last year's winner as the most sustainable company in the world, according to Corporate Knights, which is a steel company, of course, traditionally a massive CO2 emitter, the ones who actually did the most on that agenda and thus won the prize, award, or recognition as being the most sustainable company in the world, according to Corporate Knights, where they are also having their best commercial years ever. And they have built into their core sustainability and integrity as core values, and are setting their targets based off of this. And it's enabling them to have a more positive impact in the world, but it also gives them a differentiating factor in an industry that is super small margins. So that, of course, is one way of seeing value for our organizations here. Will people choose you only for your sustainable or responsible profile? No, of course they will not. But very often it can be the defining, differentiating factor as more and more products and industries exist, of course, in a blood red ocean where there are so many competitors. We see the fastest growing, a completely different industry, fastest growing chocolate company in the world. They come from the Netherlands. They're called Tony Chocolonely. They are the core. Do you know those?
I love that chocolate. Yeah, Tony's.
It's great chocolate. Yeah,
Yeah.
Tony's. Can you buy it in South Africa?
I don't think you get it in South Africa, no. But I have bought it
Not
in Melbourne
yet.
a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's great chocolate. But that's one thing. There's plenty of great chocolate, but they build their entire organization not around creating great chocolate, but in solving a massive global social problem, which is slavery in the cocoa industry. And there are a lot of other key problems in the cocoa industry. One of the reasons that there are these key problems is because, as a cocoa farmer, the conditions for making a living are abysmal. So they have decided, to change the entire supply chain and work towards eradicating slavery, and doing that by creating, decent working and living conditions for the farmers that they're working with and growing from there. So they are changing the entire supply chain here. And in the beginning, when they started out about 10 years ago, everybody was laughing at them, saying, this is completely impossible. It's way too complex, but they're doing it. And that means that the big players are now also getting on board. They created this open chain where they are, Ben and Jerry's is one of the reasons, other way bigger players than they are joining this chain. So they are now building out an entirely new ecosystem. They are also very great marketers, and also have a great, fun way of doing marketing on top of a very serious and difficult topic. But all of that combined means that they're the fastest growing chocolate brand in the world. So we're seeing these examples from, so massively different industries where the organizations who actually dare to innovate from the very core of who we are, innovate on the purpose why we are here, innovating on their entire supply chain processes, how they are then also changing the world at the same time as they're building great business.
So interesting, and I think it's really about asking the right questions. Asking, what is our purpose? Like what you just said, is why are we doing this? And